afternoon, everybody. I imagine some of you have been following this phenomenon called El Nino, which is striking hard in a number of parts of the world, nowhere harder than in Ethiopia. We are also tracking its impacts in Latin America, and we are receiving information that it appears to be far worse in southern Africa than we had hoped. We began responding to the impacts in Ethiopia in the fall. We track these things looking at weather and market data. It is at the point now where over 10 million people are in need. The United States has to date provided $500 million. In January, I was able to join in Ethiopia the Secretary General of the United Nations, UN agencies, and the EU in a session where we collectively looked at what we needed to do. We are announcing today that we are going to take a step as a contribution to that in one that we hope will lead the rest of the international community, which is to deploy what we call a disaster assistance response team. This is a group of experts that allows us to take a response that has been robust to date, but to accelerate and expand it. Our aim, though, is different than it often is. Most times we deploy a DART at the height of an emergency. We are moving earlier in this case because we have found that there is real alignment between donors, NGOs, the government and UN agencies, that if we move very, very, very quickly, we can avert the worst impacts of this drought. Now, I don't want to underestimate the fact that it's already having impact. There have been losses to livestock. There are signs and growing signs of malnutrition. We are at risk of poor farmers invoking coping mechanisms and thus becoming poorer and more vulnerable over time. But again, the important thing here is this is almost an act of emergency prevention. If we move now, if other donors, if others move with us, we think we can do two things: avert the worst impacts and protect some of the development gains that that country has made over many years. The UN estimates that what is needed urgently over the next 3 months is $268 million. We are also moving seeds, $4 million worth of seeds very quickly now. This is another critical factor for farmers. Obviously, if they're able to make the planting season, they will not be dependent in the coming year. So our team will be led by a woman named Kate Farnsworth. She's one of our most experienced DART leaders. And again, what they will do is work with partners, the government, the UN agencies, to expand and accelerate the response to this. I will conclude just by reinforcing the point that this is something different. We are challenging the world not just to respond to human suffering, but to respond quickly enough to prevent something even worse.